This is why he's the voice that both sides do at least appreciate. In a time where politicians are increasingly expected to follow party lines, John Fetterman stands out by sticking to what he believes in and saying it like it is, even if I don't agree with him. The Pennsylvania senator has earned widespread respect across the political spectrum for his no-nonsense approach and being direct, and today we're covering his latest appearance on The View and putting the hosts in their place for their loaded questions. As always, make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell for more videos just like this.
Senator, President Biden's decision to pardon his son Hunter is facing bipartisan backlash. Even the Democrats are all over it. But what do you think? Is this much ado about nothing? It is his son, after all, and people do have sympathy for that. But a lot of people are angry with him about it. What do you say?
Oh, well, I think it's undeniable that the case against Hunter Biden was really politically motivated. But I also think it's true that the trial in New York for Trump that was political as well too. Now it's that, and in both cases, I think a pardon is appropriate, and I really think collectively, America's confidence in these kinds of institutions have been damaged by these kinds of cases. And we cannot allow these kinds of institutions to be weaponized against our political opponents.
Hunter Biden's case has recently exposed a major double standard when it comes to politicizing legal cases. The left, who have spent years politicizing legal matters, especially if the said matters relate to Donald Trump, are now crying wolf when it comes to the Hunter Biden case. For years, Trump faced an endless barrage of legal cases, investigations, and media scrutiny, with the right screaming about the dangers of turning legal matters into political spectacles. They argued that those investigations, like the Russia probe and impeachment cases, were purely driven by partisan politics, yet now, with Hunter Biden's various scandals making headlines, ranging from his laptop saga to his business dealings with foreign nations, the narrative has shifted. It's as if suddenly the left has found out the concept of politicizing legal cases exists. It's almost as if the moment their own party gets involved, the same rules do not apply. The hypocrisy is pretty real, if you ask me.
They'll say that about the J6 people too, though, right? That's what they're going to say on the other side. That is weaponized also.
I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about the New York trial. And now the Democrats on our side there were some that were gleeful, calling it like, now he's a convicted felon and those things. And now for our party, we were talking about criminal justice, and we are now talking about second chances. And now all of a sudden now you're like, well, he's a convicted felon and all these things. And now clearly, again, both of those trials, the Hunter Biden one and the trial in New York for Trump, that was politically motivated. And those kinds of charges would have never been brought unless one side could realize that they could weaponize that.
It is fascinating to watch the left's response to Biden's pardon. For years, they've positioned themselves as the arbiters of justice. But now that Joe Biden has done exactly what they've accused Trump of wanting to do, their mental gymnastics are deafening. While it's true some of them are engaging in a sort of self-reflection and calling out Biden on this move, others are trying everything in their power to justify it. Instead of opening up to blatant hypocrisy, they're tying themselves into knots trying to rationalize it. They're spinning narratives about how it's different because, in their eyes, Joe Biden is fundamentally a good guy who deserves the benefit of the doubt. They'll point to Hunter's struggles or claim the move was made to protect him from political rivals, but in reality, none of the excuses would fly if the roles were reversed. For instance, a recent YouGov poll showed, quote, more than 6 in 10 Democrats approve of the pardon at least somewhat, and only about 2 in 10 object to it. But just 4 months ago, another YouGov poll asked about the broader concept of a president pardon family members, with those identifying as Democrats said by an 82 to 9% margin that this was inappropriate. You see, the statistics is an amazing thing, but being the great listener that she is, Sonny Legal Note Hostin ignored what the senator just said and engaged in the same act he was calling out as being wrong.
Since Trump's win, there's been a lot of soul searching on the Democratic side, people needing answers on what went wrong. Do you think that is helpful, and do you think there should also be some soul searching on the Republican side who need to analyze why they would nominate a convicted felon who ran on lies, threats of retribution, and concepts of a plan?
I haven't spent any of my time after the election freaking out or just thinking about. Here's where we are. And I would like to remind everybody that that's the way democracy works. I was warning people that before the election that, you have the risk. If Trump wins, then he's going to get the House. He's going to have the Senate. And now you have the Supreme Court with a strong conservative slant now, too. So here's we are. And for the next 2 years, Trump and the GOP is going to be able to drive this narrative. That's undeniable. That's a fact.
No matter how hard The View and the broader lamestream media try to paint Trump as the ultimate villain, the reality is that millions of Americans voted for him. And it's definitely not because they're villains themselves. People were fed up. They're tired of the same old rhetoric, broken promises, and policies that seem to prioritize everyone but them. For years, we've watched politicians talk a big game but deliver little. Wages have stagnated, communities have crumbled, and the so-called American dream feels out of reach for many. That's why Trump's messaging revolved around calling out the dysfunction of the system and promising to put America first, resonating with a lot of younger voter base. I've noticed, by the way, you still haven't liked the video or subscribed, so what are you waiting for? Now, people weren't looking for polished speeches or carefully crafted sound bites. They were looking for someone who seemed to understand their struggles, someone willing to challenge the elite and give them a voice. Trump wasn't just a candidate. He was a middle finger to the establishment that pushed Biden to the side and installed Kamala as the candidate, ignoring the votes of around 14 million people. Alyssa took the chance and asked Fetterman about this exact thing, and he made a very interesting point.
I enjoyed you on Joe Rogan. I thought you had some really interesting insights on the election. And one of the things that you've discussed is how Democrats lost some gains that they needed to make with young men across the board. And you said that there was a perception that they could be condescending or insulting. Can you explain what you meant by that? And how do you think Democrats need to be talking to men in a way that perhaps they weren't this cycle?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, it's become more and more difficult. It forces men to kind of choice, can I really remain a Democrat? And some of the kinds of the tone in those kinds of situations, it's undeniable. I've witnessed that over the last 8 years, and here we are now. And now whether it's bros or the manosphere and all these, clearly those are negative kinds of terms. And if you talk down with them or you make them part of the problem, or it's all because of you and your fault, then of course they're going to find an alternative, and that's what they've done. That's
what it all boils down to. Finger pointing never works, and we've seen plenty of right after the election has called for Trump. The hosts of MSNBC are clear examples of that. Another thing is the party has shifted so far left that many people have felt like strangers in their own political home. The focus that was once on jobs, healthcare, and community has now been replaced with identity politics and cancel culture. Fetterman is also correct about them talking down to people. Obama's speech is the best example of that. The former president tried to shame and gaslight black men to vote for Kamala as they couldn't think for themselves and were waiting for a speech from him to make up their minds about who they were going to vote for. I think if the Democrats want to win at least one chamber of Congress in the midterms, they need to listen to more people like Fetterman and less to people like Obama. I'd love to know your thoughts though here, so get the conversation rolling in the comments down below. And if you want your friends to be as informed as you, please share the video with them. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.